I know people are going to say this is hyperbole, but that is pretty insane. You really get the feeling Disney doesn't want this Rey movie, at least not now. If the writer is literally saying he's going to walk away, they've got some bigger problems than we ever imagined. Oh my gosh. Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. We have a lot to discuss, and we're going to start with a brand new rumour for The Mandalorian and Grogu, one which I think is bogus. According to Daniel Richman, the Jon Favreau movie will be the last chapter of the show, with no future movies or seasons planned. Din Djarin is said to appear in future Star Wars projects after the conclusion of his own show, which is no doubt going to include the movie by Dave Filoni, maybe some other spin-offs, but I just flat out don't believe this. The flagship Disney Plus Star Wars series is the basis of so many other spin-offs. It is such a big part of the future of the franchise. They just announced they're expanding it to Galaxy's Edge, and Grogu merch is the only real merch that does such big numbers. I know it's a time where Disney is cutting down on upcoming projects, but I don't think they're going to cut The Mandalorian. To my mind, this is just fan math. The movie in 2026 is going to mark the start of a new phase for this period of the New Republic. I think Lucasfilm is trying to achieve a cross-media kind of initiative, and The Mandalorian and Grogu is just the next step, not the conclusion. And so after the film, that's when I think they're going to return the show to Disney+. It might be in a different form, but I don't think the story of The Mandalorian is going to end. Some say they should have made a spin-off show called Mandalorians, and that could have started with the third season. So, as I always say, huge grain of salt. But on the movie side, we have some more major news. It's a pretty peculiar time to be a Star Wars fan. The Acolyte has come and gone. Skeleton Crew, a couple of months away. But most of the updates we've been getting in recent weeks are for the films, the first of which is 2 years away, at the earliest. And following a spell of rather peculiar updates for the Rey movie, we now have some more information. According to insider John Rocker, Kathleen Kennedy pushed really hard for the Rey movie to come about. Behind the scenes, by the sounds of things, there may have been a dispute and pushback from Disney's end, them trying to reason with Lucasfilm and saying, look, is this really the right direction considering the backlash from the sequel trilogy? Not to mention diminishing box office returns. Yes, the 3 films did make bank, but raking in less profit with every passing installment. And keep in mind, there was still a general buzz for the franchise in 2019. Now if this sounds somewhat familiar, it's not the first time we've heard this. Making Star Wars earlier in 2024 repeated pretty much the same thing. Kathleen Kennedy pushed and pushed for the Rey movie to be the return for Star Wars on the big screen, to be the first movie to come out after the rise of Skywalker. But as we well know, the Jon Favreau pursuit is coming first, in May of 2026. On the other hand, all we keep hearing on the Rey front is that the Charmin Obaid-Chinoy movie keeps getting pushed back. So what is going on? Are there conflicts behind the scenes? I don't mean to sound conspiratorial, but it sounds like the tide might be turning. This report comes just hours after another update from Daisy Ridley herself. Once again, in the French press, this time from Premiere, Daisy insists she was not forced to return, but instead, she was convinced by the amazing story, despite never having seen a script. The overall outline of the film, which was pitched to Daisy by Kathleen Kennedy over lunch. I know she loves the character of Rey and all of that, and I'm sure she did have a choice, but I guess there was always going to be a monetary and career incentive to return to the biggest role that she's ever played, the one everyone knows her for. Because while she has done a couple of really good projects since The Rise of Skywalker, it's not been anywhere near the level of Star Wars. But she wants to reassure fans in this brand new interview, the movie is going to be good. Here's what she said. They simply asked if I wanted to do it, based on an idea, without the script being written yet. But if I hadn't been convinced by the concept, the movie would never have been made. I took a day to think about it, and I told myself that I had had great times making those films. This new adventure seemed fun to me, so why say no? My thoughts on the subject are quite simple. If I didn't think the story was worth it, I wouldn't have come back. If you take it at face value, the new Jedi Order movie is going to be truly something different, something new. But what it means to the franchise remains to be seen, and it's no surprise, fans are already having their doubts. And yet another rumour from John Rocker seems to suggest behind the scenes things are not as smooth as they seem. Apparently screenwriter Stephen Knight, who is writing the project, is fed up and is on the verge of leaving. The studio keep wanting him to change the script. He was buried in, quote, 1 million studio notes and is now looking to leave. If he does decide to call it quits, that's going to have some dire consequences on the making of this movie. And take note of what I said the other day. There is a very solid chance the Rey movie is never, ever going to happen. Despite production rumoured to begin in just a few months' time, despite everything Daisy Ridley is saying about the concept of the movie, there is no script. The screenwriter is at his wit's end. It's really not coming together, and just like Rogue Squadron and many other projects before it, I wouldn't be surprised in a few months if some of the trades come out with a scoop that the writer of the Rey movie left due to, quote, creative differences. That old familiar phrase we all know so well. It sounds like a really rough time behind the scenes, and I can't imagine Disney is happy with Lucasfilm's output. The very fact that Favreau's movie is taking precedence over the Rey film should tell you everything you need to know. The Rey movie was originally slated to be the first that was announced at Star Wars Celebration in April of 2023. The Mandalorian and Grogu wasn't announced until 2024, earlier this year, and the fact it's going to come first should be a massive hint Bob Iger, Disney, are starting to prioritize things they think will do better with fans. The next chapter of the Mandalorian story is well into production at this point. We've had casting updates, a couple of set photos, whereas on the other hand with the Rey movie, all we get is delays. Every couple of months is the same thing. The Rey movie's been pushed back. Daisy Ridley says she's excited to read the script, but still hasn't, etc, etc. It's the same stories over and over again. And because Lucasfilm rarely announce things themselves, we just have to rely on the trades. Same with the cancellation of The Acolyte. Did Lucasfilm ever put anything on their website? They don't address anything themselves. In fact, you'd be pressed to find any information about the Rey movie outside of what was announced at Star Wars Celebration, which was only Kathleen Kennedy and Charmin Obi-Chinoy hyping it, and then getting Daisy Ridley on stage. Whereas with the Mandoverse, Lucasfilm is more proactive. It's a truly bizarre situation, but like I said, something seems to be finally changing. It has to. Something needs to change. We can all just pretend everything's fine, Lucasfilm handles the PR side fine, but they don't, and it's not. I have a lot of hope for the future of this franchise, if change comes. It's the same week we heard from Daniel Richman, the Taika Waititi movie is on indefinite hold. Again, a news update that comes up multiple times every single year. I don't expect a Taika movie, I don't expect a Rey movie. To be honest, the only one we can be almost certain is going to come to fruition is The Mandalorian and Grogu. While it might not be the film everyone was hoping for as the big return of Star Wars in cinemas, in my opinion it's their best bet, and the one I'm most excited about. And you know, we've reached a stage where The Mandalorian and Grogu doesn't even need to be that innovative. What I see from fans is the hope of a return to the greatness of the show's best. I have hopes it's going to do some cool things though. At D23 we had an amazing trailer where we're returning to Hoth. Freaking Hoth. We're going to see ATSTs, the return of Zeb Orrelios. They've clearly invested a lot of money into the visual effects, and hopefully the best of the creativity of Jon and Dave. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of excitement when the trailer drops sometime in 2025, which is another really exciting thing. Within a year, when you think about it, we should have had a few press releases, some stills, maybe our first teaser trailer for the movie, and it'll be interesting to see the way the fandom responds to the prospect of returning to the cinema to see a Star Wars movie. A new Star Wars movie. But had it been the other way round, had it been the Rey movie to come first, I really don't think the excitement would have been there. Lucasfilm is already getting ratios on every trailer they put out. Their projects just haven't been performing or resonating with Star Wars fans. Star Wars Outlaws is already becoming irrelevant, only weeks after release. This report came out. Star Wars Outlaws nearly falls off top 40 most popular PlayStation games list less than a month after release. True Trophies, which reports its weekly top 40 most popular PlayStation games based off a sample of 3.1 million PlayStation Network accounts, notes that Star Wars Outlaws ranked 39th in its 4th week on the charts. To put this in perspective, it's getting beat by Hogwarts Legacy, God of War Ragnarok, and Ghost of Tsushima, all 3 of those games released over a year ago. So again, it's kind of a bummer to have to say this. I'm always trying to be positive on my channel, but this is kind of a flop. Not only is the game almost out of the top 40 list, PSN Profiles reports there are only 7,090 Star Wars Outlaws owners. On the positive side of things, it has been in the top 5 UK sales in its first month. But straight after launch, sales dipped 55% lower than what Star Wars Jedi Survivor did. But that, my dear friends, is pretty much all of the latest Star Wars news. I want to know your thoughts on the Star Wars movie front. How do you think things are going to play out? What does Lucasfilm need? Do you think their direction is going to change? Does it need to change? Let me know in the comments. Your guys' comments are some of the most insightful. We have such a fantastic community of fans with a diverse array of opinions, so I want to know your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this video, my dear friends, please do me a favour. Please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you always.